It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. As always, we begin here at home. And of course, in recognition of her exceptional leadership and strategic vision for the future of the World Trade Organization, which saw her reappointment for a second term, the Director General of the global trade body, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, has been nominated as THISDAY Woman of the Year. Okonjo-Iweala is the first woman and first African to serve as Director General of the WTO. She's been consistently praised by members of the global trade body for her outstanding leadership at the Geneva-based organization. Her reappointment highlighted the strong support for her efforts to enhance the WTO's relevance and capacity in addressing the evolving challenges of global trade. Amid significant global economic challenges, she strengthened the WTO's ability to support its members and set a forward-looking agenda for the organization. Her leadership was instrumental in securing meaningful outcomes at pivotal moments, including the 12th and 13th ministerial conferences, where major milestones were achieved. Likewise, the chairman of the Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, the chairman of Globacom, Chief Mike Adenuga, founder of Bua Group, Abdul Samad Ishaku Rabiu, chairman of Zenith Bank PLC, Mr. Jim Ovia, president of the African Export-Import Bank, Afrixim, Benedict Orama, embattled human rights activist and lawyer Dele Farotimi, Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, Mele Kyari, CEO, Managing Director, First Exploration and Petroleum Development Company Limited, Demola Bero, were nominated Titans of the Year. So, of course, yesterday we unveiled the Man of the Year as chosen by THISDAY. And these are some of the awardees for Titan of the Year, of course, as we continue to count down to the days until the awards take place themselves. Woman of the Year, of course, at the top of the list amongst the group of Titans. Dr. Abati, your take on this?
Okay, I was saying yesterday that Man of the Year nominee or declaration awarded to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is likely, to generate mixed reactions, particularly from the opposition, particularly from skeptics. But we stress the point that President Tinubu was chosen on the basis of the courage that it brings to it, because leadership, someone had said previously, requires taking tough decisions. And Nigerians have, for the first time, a president who says, well, we have to take the tough decisions. And we have to take the tough decisions from day one if we have to make progress. With regard to the choice of the Man of the Year, with which you began the narrative, expectations. Nigerians will expect that the fructification of the reforms will be something that they will see in the year 2025. And in anointing, in choosing, in declaring President Tinubu as Man of the Year, the THISDAY Board of Editors have also presented him with a challenge. He has to walk the talk. Now, this morning, the newspaper now has come forward with the announcement that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is the choice as the Woman of the Year. In addition, other nominees were named, winners of Titans of the Year, winners of posthumous awards, and other persons who have impacted life and the globe, the world, in the year 2024. Now, I have no doubts that there will be very little disagreement or tittle-tattling, over the names that are in that complete list this morning. First, to start with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Well, she comes across to everybody, either in Nigeria or anywhere in the world, as a woman of sterling talents, achievements, distinction, excellence, in whatever capacity she has ever functioned. Either as Minister of Finance or Foreign Affairs under the Obasanjo administration, or as Coordinating Minister of the Economy under the Goodluck Jonathan government, or as a managing director at the World Bank, or as board member of varied global institutions, as Gavi, which is into health, or Twitter, as it was then known. This is a special diamond produced by Nigeria, who has been making impact all over the world, and who has established herself not with her stylish headgear that has become iconic, but also by the impact she makes in every assignment that is given to her. And hence, she has become an inspiration, a source of inspiration, a role model for the girl child and every woman in every part of the world. And I think Nigeria is blessed to have a person like Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, from a remote village in Delta State, and who has even taken, that village, I think she's from Ogwashuku, and who has taken that remote village onto the global map. So she's a pride to our community. She's a source of pride to our state, and a source of pride to Nigeria, and a global ambassador. So I agree absolutely with the editors of THISDAY, the board of editors, in choosing Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Woman of the Year. They said that on the basis of the excellence and distinction that she has again demonstrated as Director General of the World Trade Organization, there was no controversy over her, reappointment for a second term. It was very smooth. And if you have ever worked with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she's a people person. She has person skills. I don't know if that is the right word. She relates with everybody, whether you are black or white or short or whatever. She's somebody who focuses on excellence. And I think that should be a lesson for all of us, not just women, but also for men, to know that in whatever you do, you distinguish yourself. And she has also distinguished herself, in her personal life, producing children who are superstars in their own right. When you are a good person, when you are a talented person, when you are a genius, it shows in every aspect of your life. However, beyond the celebration, she's Director General of WTO in her second term, at a time when the world is going to face serious challenges with trade relations. President Trump is going to be inaugurated on January 20. And the major fear in the world is about trade relations, about tariffs. And that is going to upend, international trade and the tariff system. And so Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, in her second term, as a WTO Director General, is going to have challenges, particularly the rivalry between China and the United States, with President Trump as president, and the other allied issues that will come up, either from Canada, Mexico, or from other parts of the world, or the European Union, particularly, as other countries seek and try to assert themselves within the international global trade system. So, good choice. Now, to the other categories that the THISDAY Board of Editors have chosen, where you also cannot argue with their choice. Take, for example, Titans of the Year, Alhaji Aliko Dangote. Alhaji Aliko Dangote this year delivered a $20 billion worth of a refinery. A man who believes in his country. A man who says he has no accommodation, he has no house anywhere in the world. Whatever God has blessed him, whatever money God has blessed him to make, he invests in Nigeria. Why won't you celebrate a man like that? Otumba Mike Adenuga. Out of the over 200 million population of Nigeria, waking up in the morning, they have an encounter with Otumba Mike Adenuga through Globacom, through Glo line. This is a man who has helped within the Nigerian environment to expand the scope for the freedom of expression. In addition to his philanthropy over the years, and he has been consistent in this regard, creating jobs, creating wealth. So whether you talk about Aliko Dangote or you talk about Otumba Mike Adenuga, these are people, these are patriots, people who believe in their country. They have not ever taken government appointments. They have never, taken government contracts. These are persons who are involved in the building of Nigeria. So again, I think in that regard, I agree with the THISDAY Board of Editors. I also agree with them in the other choices that they have made. Abdul Samad Ishaku Rabiu is also a major industrialist in this country, creating opportunities for people. There are many families who have benefited from the opportunities that he has created for them. The same with Jim Ovia, chairman of Zenith Bank. The chairman of Zenith Bank, at the time I was in government, he was a member of the Economic Management Committee of the Jonathan administration. And I was always impressed by his insights. He didn't come to meetings to seek opportunities from government. He has a very robust intellect. People may not have encountered him at that level. But through Zenith Bank, he has created also job opportunities. He has also, expanded the scope for financial intermediation. And beyond that, he has even, gone into other things like education. He is the founder and chairman of Hope College, where many Nigerians, where he's building for the future. Mele Kyari, the engineer Mele Kyari, the group CEO of NNPC Limited, was also mentioned in that list. The big achievement with NNPC this year is that, look, for decades, our refineries have not functioned. But under Mele Kyari's watch, for a long time, we had a December where there were no queues. That takes some engineering to do. He's an engineer, by the way. And then the refineries are working to some extent. Warri Refinery, that is 125,000 barrels per day. The Port Harcourt Refinery, even if it is the old refinery that is working, at 60,000 capacity per day. In other words, under his watch, there's some hope about increased supply of petrol within the community. And then they have Dele Farotimi on that list also as a Titan of the Year. Dele Farotimi is, celebrated under the category that he represents a crusader for the freedom of speech. Now, lawyers may argue with that, okay, within the context of the cases he has in court. But Dele Farotimi, without any doubt, has shown courage. He has shown determination. He has shown resilience. He has shown, after the fashion of the likes of Gani Faweyimi, a way to use the law as, a platform to interrogate society. So, and then you have Demola Biro, Mr. Demola Biro, who, is a Nigerian, another Nigerian, representing us at the level of OPEC, and who has done something innovative in the oil and gas industry. You have also in that category, Segun Agbaje of GT Bank. You have Aigboje of Access Bank. You have Aigboje Agimokwede of Guarantee Trust. These are banks that have done wonderful things within the system. You have Mohammed Ndimi, who is old money from the north and who has remained continually relevant from year to year. You have John Obaro of Specs. John Obaro, many years ago, when we were all young men, started with this thing called system specs. Many people did not understand what system specs was all about at that time. But he developed a model, I think they call it Remita, which has now become something that everybody has bought into within the Nigerian community. He was a very young man who just had this brainwave and built something up. Okay, quickly, I go to the people who have been given Lifetime Achievement Awards. Mr. Biodun Shubanjo, who was 80 recently and was justifiably, legitimately, deservedly celebrated by the entire community. Now, the story of Mr. Abiodun Shobanjo was told eloquently in the THISDAY style edition of Sunday, the very last Sunday. This is a man who has created generations of experts in the public relations advertising industry. And yet he comes across as a very humble man. No, he deserves to be celebrated, and his inclusion on that list is well-deserved. Or is it Atedo Peterside? When you see Mr. Atedo Peterside now, he comes across as a very gentle, relaxed man. This is a man who started Stanbic and created superstars and kept reproducing superstars, even in his retirement. And then the bank evolved into Stanbic IBTC, and it remains one of the strongest brands. And he's just staying back and just watching what he has created, flowering. It takes a certain level of intelligence for a man to say, I've created this. You guys run with it. This is my dream. This is my vision. Just go and achieve your own dreams. So even for that alone, I think it's a lifetime achievement. Or is it Chief Olusegun Osunkaye, a boardroom titan for decades, who even in his old age remains relevant? Or is it Fola Adiola, founder along with his Abeokuta brother, founder of Waterman College, of GT Bank, Guaranteed Trust, it was known at that time? Or is it President Goodluck Jonathan, whose story in politics is a story of achievement? From being deputy governor, he is the only man in the history of this country who has occupied every position from deputy governor to vice president to president. And now today, he's an international brand. So these are people, Senator David Mark is also on that list. Akim Bello Osage is on that list. Dr. Yemi Ogunbiyi is on that list. Dr. Yemi Ogunbiyi, an academic who came into journalism, helped to establish The Guardian and to take The Guardian to the very heights. I worked at The Guardian. We grew under the shadows of people like Dr. Yemi Ogunbiyi, either at the professional level or, even in terms of how they manage their personal lives. And Dr. Ogunbiyi, even at old age, at over 70, he's still writing, he's still doing books. When you are a brilliant man, you are a brilliant man. Whether if he wanted to be a professor, he would have been a professor before I even got my PhD. So the intellectual life, because in that list, it's only Dr. Yemi Ogunbiyi that I have seen there that is the intellectual. I would have loved to see more intellectuals on that list, because the contemplative life has its own special category. And then as for posthumous award, Herbert Wigwe, also deservedly, recognized. So on the whole, I think, it was a good publication by THISDAY Board of Editors, but the whole thing is about the inspirational angle to it, that every one of us, we should be inspired by the examples. Ask yourself, as you go into the new year, when you are also, at the end of your career or in the course of your career, will anybody remember you as a source of inspiration, or as somebody exceptional, as somebody who have achieved anything? In a country where some people seem committed to mediocrity and idleness.
Very well said, Dr. Abati, and a great way to go through this very vibrant list of individuals. And on that inspirational note, when I looked at this list, especially when you look at all that we're currently facing in the nation and the various challenges, it was important for us to highlight these individuals as a reminder that Nigeria produces giants. Nigeria is in the business of producing giants. Nigeria has been producing giants for decades. And this is against all odds, often without support from the government or from the system and so forth. These are just individuals who just said, against all odds, we will be excellent, we will build, and we will build legacies, and we'll be remembered for the good work and for the great organizations or corporations that we created. So it was fantastic. Now, especially in a time where we're having conversations around patriotism, we're having conversations around various notable personalities, traveling internationally and vocalizing what they see on the ground in Nigeria. And then oftentimes they're being attacked for painting their truth of the nation. However, we're seeing people who don't need to speak much in order for them to be ambassadors for the nation and for them to be ambassadors of what is possible. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, as a Woman of the Year, of course, myself as a woman, so excited to see this award go to such an incredible woman. Now, from the way that she wears her Africanism on her sleeve and carries it around the world, not just through her attire, but through the way she carries herself and conducts herself, she reminds us of the potential that we inhibit as African women, what we have to offer on the global stage, which is just beyond the superficial conversations. We have depth and value, not just as an African woman, but as a member of the global South. Now, when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala came to the helm of the WTO, it was a similar challenging time as the one we're in now. In fact, it may be described by many as more challenging because we had just experienced the peak of the COVID pandemic. She came in 2021 when the world was having a conversation about how global South nations, African nations, had been turned to beggars as the rest of the world shared vaccines and vaccinated themselves. She came to the helm of affairs and she spoke against vaccine protectionism, vaccine nationalism. She was one of the chief advocates who said that, well, okay, the first world countries are saying that these vaccines are their intellectual property, so they can't give the rights to other nations to create them. But she was pivotal in ensuring that that negotiation happened where some places would get the rights to manufacture these vaccines. So it was iconic for so many of us to have such a person in the room at that time because she didn't have to. As we've seen, we have Nigerians, we have Africans, we have people of African descent who represent us on the international stage, but sometimes they choose not to represent our interests. She didn't have to. But she chose to put her people first. She chose to say there's no way that vaccines will be shared all around the world. Our people are sitting at home and are watching on the news as the first world vaccinate themselves, and we are not getting the option, we're not getting the choice. It was quite a definitive era. And if you remember, she was also at the helm of affairs when the global trade routes were interrupted due to the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. So overall, she navigated her first term as the DG of the WTO with such grace, with such finesse, with such skill and excellence that not just Nigeria, but the entire global South will remember the impact that she made in advocating for our own equity, in advocating for ensuring that we have a level playing field on the global playground, especially with regards to trade. Now, of course, going into her second tenure, she's facing off with another Donald Trump presidency. If you remember, her last tenure started just at the end of Donald Trump's presidency. In fact, it's reported that Donald Trump did everything possible to ensure that she didn't come into office. And now she's going to face another Donald Trump presidency and the intrigues that it will bring to global trade affairs. Of course, there are no doubts whatsoever that she will navigate this with the same grace that she has shown throughout her career, not just at WTO, but even in government, even in corporate positions, even at the World Bank. She has shown consistency. And I think that's where some of the discussion came in yesterday with regards to the choice of the Man of the Year. I think people are saying, let's select people, or let's look at people who history can speak for. And of course, history is always the best judge. History always judges fairly. It often has no bias. It often, I use the word often intentionally because, of course, there is revisionism in history. But if we're being fair, history will be the ultimate judge. However, like Dr. Abati said, let this be a challenge to the man of the year. Now, as we celebrate some of the titans of the year reminded us this year that private sector is important in challenging the status quo. That as much as we look to government, as individuals in the office of the citizen, we also have the power to challenge the norm of how things are done. Of course, ideally, at the top of this conversation is Aliko Dangote. Aliko Dangote has, many would say, single-handedly challenged the status quo with regards to the oil cartels. Many would say that his introduction of his $20 billion refinery, which was not just celebrated in Nigeria, by the way, it was celebrated globally, because these are achievements we do not see from black men. These are achievements we do not hear from Africans. So this is a wonderful achievement that, of course, was celebrated globally. But now we're starting to see some of the results. Beyond just building this refinery, we've seen the impact that it has had in the oil sector. Now, of course, we know Nigeria is an oil nation. So when the oil sector sneezes, then we know that Nigeria catches a cold. But we've seen that the introduction of this of the refinery and having it going has also inspired the government to ensure that the state-owned refineries also get cracking. And it has also led a very pertinent conversation about the price of petroleum, the supply of petroleum, the cartels, the subsidy, the conduct. Are we blending? What type of fuel are we selling in this market? Are we giving Nigerians a fair deal when it comes to the quality of product that we're putting into our cars? So there was a revolution that began in the oil sector just by the launching. I say just because there's nothing just about a $20 billion refinery. So whether you were for him, whether you were against him, whether you fought him, whether you called him a monopolist, or whether you called him a pace setter, it is undoubted that Aliko Dangote and his refinery shook the nation and the trajectory of what we will be doing with oil in this nation for many, many years to come. And also, having said that, of course, there were the likes of Mike Adenuga, Mohammed Indemi, who were celebrated for ramping up oil production. They've made their own investments into the oil sector. And as we spoke earlier this week about, yes, it's fantastic to have refineries getting on track to go online. But ultimately, there's a big conversation to be had around the availability of crude oil. So it's important for us to also celebrate those guys who are investing heavily to ensure that crude oil output is ramped up. Another notable name, Benedict Orama, and we've seen what he has done with Afreximbank, and another fantastic example of when you have your own at the helm of affairs and he remembers home. We love the individuals who learned the lesson that charity begins at home. Some of his achievements, 2 billion euros for the Bank of Industry, of course, to support some of their work. $650 million for Owando and Natural Gas Company Limited to acquire 20% participating interest in a joint venture. $200 million corporate finance facility to support BUA's expansion. This is just a little bit of the impact that he has made within the Nigerian private sector by being at the helm of affairs of Afreximbank. So it's important for us to continue to build and encourage our own. Of course, last but certainly not least, there were those in the Lifetime Achievement category. Dr. Abati already mentioned President Goodluck Jonathan. Now, President Goodluck Jonathan, one of the major things he will be remembered for, of course, is the moment that he conceded in the election. This is something that, of course, we are starting to see it pick up around elections across the continent, but it's still a rare feat. It's still very rare to hear of an African incumbent accept the results, accept defeat, and hand over the reins to another candidate or to the winner of the election. So this is pivotal. Of course, as we know, Nigeria being the most populous black nation on earth, being the giant of Africa, that leadership sends a strong message to the rest of the continent about what we want to see with regards to elections and electoral reform, which goes beyond just the conduct of the election itself, but the conduct of our candidates and of our leaders, and the spirit of sportsmanship that needs to be embodied when it comes to the electoral stage. Of course, we've now seen him play a fantastic diplomatic role, leadership role, as he has been leading several delegations, overseeing elections across the African continent. And, when I thought about it, it made me reflect about the legacy of the now late Jimmy Carter. In that most of Jimmy Carter's legacy, many would argue, was built after he left office. So, of course, we continue to look forward to more of the work that President Goodluck Jonathan will do, especially with regards to promoting democracy, based off of his own example across the African continent. Posthumous awards, Herbert Wigwe, Chief Emmanuel Iwanyu of the Ohaneze Ndibo, who we lost this year, of course, all individuals who played pivotal roles in shaping narratives, shaping conversations. And as we go into this new year, let this be a point of inspiration that, yes, although we face several challenges, countless challenges that we highlight on this station 24 hours a day, and of course we call for accountability, we also call for accountability from the office of the citizen. And we also say that there are those who have defied the odds to change the trajectory, to change the story of the nation. They have become some of the lead employers in the country. Beyond government, you look at it, somebody like Alhaji Aliko Dangote, if you put all of them together, I'm sure they employ more than government themselves. So these are the people who are holding the economy and who are keeping it steering forward while we wait for reforms and for other incentives from government, for other initiatives, from government to start to take shape. We're so grateful that we have the private sector in very capable hands, making sure that the economy continues to beat.
And then if I may add this, before we go, there's going to be a commemorative dinner in January. We're already in January, I think January 22, by THISDAY, our newspaper, and the Arise News Group, to celebrate these icons, these titans, these achievers. So we look forward to that event being put together by the THISDAY Arise Media Group.
Absolutely.